I will say, and I look around me and people that don't do this, and I'm like, ugh, I don't hold a grudge. I don't carry
Even
that
with your
negativity.
husband?
Don't do it.
Okay.
And maybe I'm blessed with a memory that isn't quite as good, but I don't know what it is. But honestly, it's a lot to carry, and I just
interesting.
So if someone has, sort of done something offensive or been, I don't carry.
You just release it.
I don't. I let her go.
All right. Shari Cantor, welcome.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. My pleasure. I'm Rich Rockland, as you know, for the listeners. So the name of my podcast is, and you'll appreciate this hopefully, is I'll Call My Guy. And a guy is obviously gender neutral, right? Because it's, as the Italian expression, I joke with Dennis House, who's Italian. I said, the Italian expression is I got a guy.
Yeah, right.
So, but that was trademarked. So and I start my podcast of telling every guest who comes in, that's the case, but it's I'll call my guy. And what that means is basically that, you say you call a friend or whatever it is, and you say, oh yeah, like I have this problem. I'll call my person, right? It's really I'll call my person, but colloquially we say guy. And I think the reason why I called it that is because, I'm as a divorce lawyer, I help people that are going through a breakup of a relationship, or help people with custody that maybe were in a relationship but they never were married. And so that's a relationship that's falling apart in one sense, but a new relationship is forming, right? Because after the divorce, they still, if they have children, right? If they're just married, they don't have kids, you just go your separate ways.
Right.
But if you have kids, there's a new relationship that forms.
Or a dog.
Or a dog, right? Or a dog. Although they treat dogs like property, so it's property, so it's nothing special. But as a dog person, I see the importance of that. But so you form this new relationship, and so I wanted to explore a little bit, and we'll certainly get there. But to think about is the importance of relationships, and and you as somebody who's in helping run a town and politics and all of those things, what relationships, the importance of them, how you use them to get things done, how relationships, if they're not in a good place, can hinder progress of a town, sort of all of those things. So I said, who better than to have than the mayor? Yeah. So is your title mayor?
It is.
Is mayor.
It is actually by charter, which is over 100 years old. I am president of the council. That's the technical term. It's actually not by popular vote. Talk about relationships. Right. The council actually votes for their own president, kind of like the Congress votes for their own leadership. People think it's by popular vote, and usually those align, but it's technically president of the council. But it has been for decades and decades.
Oh, so you're a council member,
right?
Who and the council has elected you to be the mayor.
That's right.
I see. Okay, so you still have to same thing like in the House leadership. Let's say if you're going to be the speaker, you still have to be a congressperson.
That's exactly right.
Okay, and how long have you done that?
So I will be 8 years as mayor in May.
Okay.
And why May? Because our previous mayor, Scott Slifka, resigned. He was elected in November, and then resigned in May, and I was elected to
I see. So then it goes from when you picked up
but I was deputy mayor for 5 years prior to that. But I have been a part of the West Hartford Town Council for almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So and that involves a state, not a state, but a citywide or a townwide election.
That's right. And we run it large. We don't have districts, so we have almost 65,000 people.
Wow.
And 20. I forget the number of electors. But we have, it's a big town. We're the 9th largest in Connecticut.
Wow. And is it mayor a paying job?
No, all volunteer.
All volunteer.
Collins, yes.
So I read that you're a CPA, right? You keep that going. Do you do anything with that?
I'm a registered CPA. I'm not licensed right now. So, yeah. I keep up my registration, but
were you at some point? Were you grinding it out?
Yes, I was in public accounting, and then I went to insurance. I did insurance work, Cigna,
So that was you did it for a career for some time.
I did. Yes. And I veered off to more volunteer work. And I don't know if you want me to explain, but I have 4 sons.
Yeah. I want to talk about that. I have a list of cool
my
stuff.
youngest. So when my 3rd son, I was actually going for my master's in social work because I was going to actually work in financial literacy for women. I had a family member, a good friend who were in abusive relationships, one mentally abusive, one physically abusive, and felt they couldn't walk out of bad relationships. And I'm sure you have seen this. Yeah. And it was actually, I think, a real goal of mine to make sure that they knew they could walk away. And if you plan ahead to always be a little independent and to make sure that you have your own control over your own finances, it gives you more, I think, power to be able to walk away. And a lot of women don't necessarily understand that. And so I was actually getting my master's in social work at UConn. And I became pregnant with I was working part-time, became pregnant with my 4th son. Didn't know he was a son until he was born, but he was born with complex congenital heart disease and had 3 open heart surgeries before he was 2.
My gosh.
And with 3 other kids at home, it was a really challenging time. And so I felt like, really going through a tunnel of life at the time. There's nothing, we were just hanging on. So my husband travels a lot for work, and it was a lot. So he's graduating from BU Law School in May.
Wow. and he can live an otherwise normal
amazing.
life.
Yeah, he has a 2-chambered heart.
Right.
So
but
you wouldn't know to look at him. I am actually a board chair of Connecticut Children's Foundation, who saved his life.
Gosh.
So it's although his surgeries, a couple of his surgeries were in Boston.
Now, does he have? Because I had a friend that had a child with transposition of the great arteries.
Oh yes, he had that.
And he went up to Children's Medical is 15, 20 years, and the kid's great now, but he doesn't have any long-term issues. But I would imagine with a 2-chambered heart, they have to keep probably on some medicines and things like that.
Well, he's very closely monitored every 6 months.
And could he have a prognosis for the same type of life, like a same lifespan?
So he's sort of that first generation of, they call them Fontan procedure kids. Those are kids that didn't have a heart transplant but had this alternative plumbing change, right? And so one of the things that is concerning is pressures on the abdominal organs, and there seems to be a liver component. So they're monitoring him very, very closely, and he's in Boston and has a great team. And he's an amazing person, and he watches his health. He walks a lot. They said he'd probably never run a mile. He runs the Manchester Road Race. He ran it, I think,
oh my God, you must be
7th time this year. He's an inspiration for us and his 3 older brothers. And
so that was sort of a catalyst, if you will, for you to slow down and
change direction and make my time really meaningful. Whatever I was pulling me away from.
And then you had because we have 3, and it's insanity. But 4 is mental illness. So I used to say, say 3 was mental illness, but now I changed when we had 3. I'm like, no, we're not mentally ill. It's the people with 4.
Well, it is 4 because you can't fit in a normal car. You can't.
You need to have like a big vehicle.
We had a Suburban, and people would laugh.
You need a Suburban.
I'm 4'11", and people would laugh when I would get out of the Suburban and fill it with gas.
Oh my gosh! So where do you grow up?
I grew up here in town.
West Hartford?
I did.
You were a West Hartfordite.
I'm one of 4, and I went to Hall High. There are 4 of us in 5 years.
What?
Talk about, my brothers are 15 months apart. My sister and I are 15 months apart. We're all.
Oh my God, your dad wouldn't leave your mother alone.
It was very busy. Yes. So were different times, though. We went outside to play a lot, right? And locked the door behind us.
Well, they didn't have phones to bury them. They had to turn to each other.
Absolutely.
So 4 kids.
Yeah,
so you grew up here.
But I'm the only local one. I have a sister in New York and a brother in North Carolina and a brother in Florida. and they haven't been locum for a while. And my mom is in the house I grew up in.
What? Here in town? Oh
95.
My God.
She'll be 96
is she
in
sharp?
July. She's so sharp.
Is she tough on you still?
She used to be a little taller than me. Now she's about 3 inches shorter than me. She lifts weights every day.
Gosh.
She has 1 pound weight she lifts. She does little push-ups, and she's really amazing.
A firecracker, huh?
Yeah, she's sharp as a tack. She beats us in bananagrams.
It said here, again, we're just looking on stuff on the internet, but she's an immigrant. Right?
She is not. She's
not?
Children of an immigrant.
Oh, children of an immigrant.
Yeah,
I was going to say at 95, Polish-Russian, the parents escaped the Holocaust?
Her dad was Russian and didn't want to serve in the Russian army and ran away and ended up serving in World War One in the United States. So my dad was a World War II veteran. He served in the Army of Occupation. He was the youngest of 5, the only son. So he had a year deferment for World War II. So he was in Germany in the Army of Occupation.
So your mom's still here, and you go to Hall, and then off to college at some point?
Yes. It's 4, and we were 4 and 5 years. So my dad always said, and the course was for a long time, he said, it's UConn or you pay. And
that's funny.
So my oldest brother went to UConn. He was an accounting major. My second brother went to UConn. He was an accounting major, and I met all their friends, and they had some cute friends, and I said, you know what? I'm pretty good at math. I could do that. So I actually started as a psychology major and then switched to accounting. So my sister, though, was an engineering major. So
did she become an engineer?
She, well, actually, she's a patent attorney.
Oh, wow.
My husband's a patent attorney.
Oh, that's right. He has an IP firm, right?
And she became exposed to that through
does she work with your husband?
No. She's in New York.
Because the patent attorneys from, I remember working with them. I was at large firms for many years, is that they have to have an undergraduate degree in science, and they actually take the bar before everyone else because of the patent bar.
Exactly.
And they're a different breed of person. Completely.
Right. Almost like, a little more so even than tax attorneys. But if you're a tax attorney.
No, right. But I remember, though, we always used to joke about the patent attorneys. So they're stay away from those guys.
It's so funny.
Weirdos, right?
My husband's not. Oh, yeah. My brother actually cut an article out when we became engaged. And I was a CPA. He's a patent attorney. And there was an article about the 2 most boring professions. And he goes, have fun, guys.
Well, I heard, what I heard is even worse, patent litigation.
Yeah.
Because they're fighting over whether you infringe their patent, and they're reading the,
and to be honest,
patents.
All of those things I think are so narrow because my husband has a global practice and we have traveled around the world, and he has met people from everywhere, and we've sat at a table with people from 40 different countries.
Amazing.
And so he's a very interesting man, and so many people that we work with. And many people have left. We have a very good friend from India that left to actually be a judge. And now he's writing he's a very accomplished author and has been honored by the most high up in India.
Wow.
So, you meet amazing people.
That's very cool that he goes and you've been able to travel with him for work because he started his firm, right? It's a Connecticut-based firm, right? But It's an international practice, isn't it?
Yeah. So when he started, there were 2 partners, and one of the partners was his UConn Law, his professor at UConn and UConn Law, and he started working for his firm, and as was kind of out of in law school, and then and then right out of law school. So. And now they are one of the top 5 patent firms in the country, size-wise, and patents issued.
Wow. And it's in Windsor, I think, right?
Actually, no, they're downtown. They've been downtown for...
Were they in Windsor? Why do I think Windsor?
They were a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago.
Okay.
But a long time ago.
But right. I remember that. So they're in downtown.
Yeah, they are in the Stilts building.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Near Harvard Stage. Yeah.
So you get... so when do you meet him?
When did I meet?
Yeah.
So we both went to UConn. He was a year ahead. I recognized him from UConn, and we both were working on Lewis Street. I was working for an accounting firm, and he was
that cute little street there?
Yes.
Yeah, for Pearl.
And so we recognized each other from UConn and had a couple mutual friends. And
that was it?
So, yeah.
And how many years have you been married?
So March 24th, it will be 39 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And how old's your oldest?
My oldest.
No, I'm not. No, I don't care. Listen, no judgment. I'm just curious. I'm just trying to put it all together.
I have 4 sons and I have a granddaughter.
Wow.
18-month-old granddaughter.
Wow, so you're busy.
Yeah, and they were in Boston until 6 months ago and moved here. And so I get to see my granddaughter quite a bit. And it's so wonderful because they have some time and a break and we're, really bonding with her.
So how much time then, so now that, obviously you have the family close by, you have your granddaughter.
My mom.
Your mom. And so how much is the time commitment as the mayor?
So the way it works, and we have a council manager form of government. So it works more like a board of directors. We are policy. We're the policy board, and the administration of the town is done by the town manager. So again, council manager form of government. It's been in existence in town for over 100 years.
Like if it's a company,
they're the chief executive.
You're the board, right?
Exactly. There's things that I have to sign and things that, they say, no, the mayor needs to do that. But as far as the day-to-day operations of the town, it is done through the town manager. We hire the town manager as a council. And we also, the biggest policy decision we make is the budget. So when department heads, they report to the town manager and he will come up with a budget. But if they say we need, 4 more police officers, the town manager's budget becomes our budget. And then we can either, add those or not. And those are policy decisions we make. So it's, we don't have, by state statute, Connecticut is a little bit interesting, and every town is structured differently. But one thing is very consistent. The Board of Education is separate than the council. Mm-hmm. And the Board of Education has governance over the schools. We do not. We have bottom line authority on their either accepting their budget, or we determine a budget line, bottom line.
But you can't get involved in anyone.
But we can't get involved in. So if say they just submitted their budget, it broke $200 million, and we could say, no, you need to be at $195 million, and that $6 million difference, they would have to figure out where it comes from. We would have absolutely no say. So they could eliminate full-day kindergarten.
And you couldn't do a thing.
Couldn't do a thing. Couldn't do
and
it.
They're governed by a superintendent?
They are similar. They oversee the superintendent. Superintendent is the CEO of the schools, right? And they are the policy board. So set up similarly, they elect their own leadership.
And what's that called? The
Board of Education.
The Board of Education oversees the superintendent
who oversees the schools.
I see. Mm-hmm. Okay. How many schools in West Hartford?
So we have 11. We have 9. Gosh, this is, oh my gosh. I
don't mean to put you on the spot. I didn't.
Well, 2 high schools, 3, so 5, and I think there are 14. But then we have private schools. We have an independent
right.
academy. We have the AE, there's other schools that we do fund. So
I see. So it's hard. That's why you're getting confused. All right. So there's.
We have 9 elementary, 3. So yeah.
And how about how do the police tie into this? Are they a separate? Who oversees the police?
The town manager oversees the police, but the schools actually. The schools have some. The resource officers are assigned by the superintendent, and that's in their budget, not in the town budget.
I see, but they're sworn police officers.
Guards too. That's an interesting,
I see. And does the town manager, is the town manager elected?
No.
Who hired by the board?
The council.
I see. Okay, and they're an executive that runs the city. So that person serves at the will of the.
Yes, and I don't know if you follow, in the paper in the last few years, there's actually been some turnover in town managers. Some have stayed for decades in a town. Others have had pretty short stints, and it hasn't worked out. It's got to be pretty difficult to work for a political body, right? So, that a town manager would, I usually research what's happened and how the council has treated previous town managers. Well, Bloomfield had a number of, a few difficult town managers. They had a town manager for years. That town manager retired. They hired a town manager. There was some, I think, conflict on the board. That town manager ended up, there was some negativity, between the two of them at meetings. It can be a pretty ugly dynamic. There was also a situation, I think, in Newington and somewhere else. So yeah, it can be a challenging role, and it's such an important role for the structure of much of our town.
And who's our current town manager?
Rick Ledwith.
How long has he been with us?
He was executive vice president of HR. Okay. So he worked his way up through the HR department, became chair, and he was head of the HR. So he knows everybody. He knows this, the whole town. Even with the Board of Education, they go through. We have one HR department, the structure was, he was like the top of both. So he really knows. So we had a town manager, Matt Hart, who left to go to the Capital Region Council of Governments. Oh. And that's really great for us to have that. That's our COG, which is sort of our regional county government structure. We don't have formal county government. That's what. And so we hired Rick from internally.
And he's been there, you said, how long?
So he's been town manager for 3 years now.
Okay.
Almost, difficult year.
But this is, the reputation here. So I have office here. I live in Farmington, right over the line. Like I could throw a stone into West Hartford. Yeah. So I don't. But I have an office right on the main strip here, so I'm very interested in this town. And my wife, who's grew up on Thompson Road, and went to Conard. I always have admired West Hartford as such a well-run town, and it is. I mean, the everything is kept up nicely, and people always sort of. Yeah, I'm sure you get a million texts and emails about this. Oh, the taxes. But in my view is. If you're it's one thing if you're in a town where you have high taxes and you're not getting anything for it. But here you get a lot of value, right? I think you guys really do deliver value for that. I mean, because people want value. They want schools. They want to be safe. They want to have the potholes filled, right? I mean, you always talk about the most important thing, as a mayor is like, what are the potholes?
Potholes aren't political.
Potholes are political, yeah.
Potholes are not political. Fill the potholes. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so you got to figure out.
And you want to, the people want, the basics, right? They want to be able to make sure their kids are educated well, and they want to make sure that they are safe, right? And just the basics of life. And I think that, West Hartford delivers on all that stuff. So you guys should be very proud of that because this town has come a long way. In the last 25 years,
Absolutely.
And now it's just such a wonderful place. And a testament to that also is. The housing market here.
Well, that's right. So part of those, a major part of that taxes, when we talk about it, is an insurance policy, basically, of the value of your home. If we stop investing in our public safety, in our schools, in our infrastructure, that might not happen immediately, but the trickle will happen.
Oh, yeah.
And so
something. And people, as you see too, I'm sure you scroll through Neighbors and Friends and all of that, and you see, but there's people, they're building some great places around the center, and people say, oh, it's changing the dynamic. But I always say, and again, I know you wouldn't say this, but I say to people, but now your house was worth $500,000 2 years ago. It's now worth $9 million. Like, come on, they're doing something right here.
And change is hard. Look,
change is hard. Yeah.
And there's so many. I really, really is difficult, and If we stand still, we will be where we were. We wouldn't move forward.
But what do they say? Without change, there's no change.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. No, it's good. And I know that you guys are certainly cognizant of that because who the heck wants to go to people and say, hey, open your wallet again. What are when you sort of have this, when you go through that budget process, like how do you? Obviously the people have elected you. In the town council, I know it's a largely Democrat town, and and I know that, obviously our national politics is wild right now, but locally, like I guess local Democrat versus Republican is much different than national Democrat, very different. And but people elect you because they want they like your priorities and they like presumably what you're going, you don't go out and poll the people and then vote a certain way. They say, we want Shari. We think that she's got a good moral compass. She's got good priorities that are aligned with us. She's going to make good decisions for the town. How does that factor in when you look at the budget and kind of what you're going to, put money into? Is you going to put, some people say build more jails, or people say, build bigger schools, or put more social programs. How do you how does political philosophy and priority sort of factor into that? How do you balance all that?
It is, first of all, you're not doing it after the fact, right? You're governing in a way, and you're guiding our chief elected official, our chief executive, our elected officials are guiding that person throughout the year. So there's not usually a lot of surprises at budget time. The schools are a little different because we don't have control over that. The board does, and we have a relationship with the board, but it's separate by design, because I think of the fact that councils could really control things that you don't really know about. You're not really in the weeds on. And so they have this governance separation. But, you started this by talking about relationships and interesting. And I always say this to people. Relationships take time, they take care, and they take, good faith and trust and all of those things. And so I've been doing this a long time. I've got a lot of relationships with a lot of people. And you don't just go to people when you have bad news or you need something. You go to people when you have good things to share too, or just to listen to them, right? And so responsiveness, all of those things showing how we do care, and we are really careful about every dollar that comes in, taxpayer dollar that comes in, that we're good stewards. So when we are looking at the whole picture, we can explain. And look, everybody's not going to be happy. There's going to be probably a quarter of people, no matter what I do, that are not going to like what I do.
No matter what you do.
And it's interesting. I just had an email. I'm not going to say who it's from. It was from a beautiful neighborhood in West Hartford. And person yelling at me because the pipes they're having new stormwater pipes put in.
Investing in infrastructure.
And they're so upset with how it's being done. And they're putting curbs in, and they're so upset with the curbs because that's a waste of money. So, and we don't have a water problem.
And you put in those nice granite curbs that last
not
forever.
Everywhere.
But those last.
Yeah, that's right. They last for hopefully 40 years, 50 years or longer. So, but it's, not everybody's going to see that dollar being spent the same way. If we can not maintain that, if that road will be good for 30 years, that's a good investment.
And so to the relationship issue, it seems what you're saying is that the relationship that you fostered is not just one of, here's what I'm doing, take it or leave it. It's more of, you foster that over time so that when you have to lead and govern, and you may have an ask of somebody, that it seems what you're saying is that it's easier, or it makes things easier. I think that's the best word, to facilitate that, because the person knows that you're doing something that's thoughtful. It's not just that you're going to them, with hat in hand, but that they know that you've thought about this.
Right. You're absolutely 100% right. It's like any relationship, I think, that you build in your life. If you have a friend and you've been a good friend and you've listened to that friend and you brought soup over when they're sick, or you take care of their child or something like that, when you need something, could you, when my youngest son was born, we had to leave 3 other children and go to Boston for, we didn't know how long, right? Until he was let out, and, we didn't know. And the second surgery, we were there for a number of weeks. But I had friends that stepped in to say, we got your kids, do not worry about them, do not think about, they will be loved and taken care of.
Wow.
And I had a couple of friends who really, really stepped up, and one of them passed away a few years ago. But it's that that I would do anything for that friend. She helped me, and I would have done anything. So, it's part of life. It's being there for somebody. It's listening. But all of those things.
So do you, but do you think that those qualities, I guess let me ask you this. What qualities do you think allow, you or anybody, let's say, obviously every town is different, right? Being the Hartford mayor is different, being the West Hartford mayor, completely different. But
he's the chief executive, but
right,
that mayor,
right? Yeah. But what type of qualities, leadership qualities, personality qualities, do you think serve somebody well in this type of role where it's a volunteer role, but it's still, it's an important role, and you're stewarding the all of the money, and you can prioritize where that goes, right? You can shortchange education, and you can, send money to the police and all that. What do you think are the qualities that you have that serve you best, and what qualities do you think that you wish you had that maybe you can that you wish you could improve upon, that would, like if you had, look at our age, right? We're only, we know. I'm 48, right?
You're young.
I'm young, but I'm saying so you're older than me. I'm not, I'm not going to age you. But the point is that, but at our age, you should know by now what you're good at and what you're not, right? And you're not, and you can improve. And I firmly believe this. You can improve on certain things. I know that I'm better at 48 at certain things than I was at 38. But in large part, in my view, our personalities are very formed, and what we're really good at, we can improve and get better in skill set. So there's certain things I'm sure you say, I'm really good at this, but not good at this. And so I'm sort of curious what you think, what skill that you have that you think has served you the best in this role.
Well, from a personality perspective, I'll start there. I will say, and I look around me and people that don't do this, and I'm like, I don't hold a grudge. I don't carry
Even
that
with your
negativity.
Husband?
Don't do it.
Okay.
And maybe I'm blessed with a memory that isn't quite as good, but I don't know what it is. But honestly, it's a lot to carry, and I just
interesting.
So if someone has, sort of done something offensive or been, I don't carry.
You just release it.
I let her go, and I do this because I care about the community. I'm not doing this to step to some other higher. And I think that can be when you're, whether it's ambition or ego or whatever that is, I think that doesn't drive me. I want to do the best job. I'm competitive. So I want to do the best job I can. I want our town to be on those top lists. And when I read something and I go, we're not in the top 10, like, seriously? So when I'll go, why aren't we? What's going on? So that drives me. But as far as skill set, I would say that I do listen.
Okay.
I do take the time to bring people along. And I think it's being a leader, you can tell people what to do. If they don't understand why, and if you haven't listened to their point of view, it's going to be much harder to bring them along. And that takes time. So, and it's funny because I don't think I'm the most patient person, but I know when patience is needed to get to a goal.
That's sort of interesting, and that makes a lot of sense because when we do a lot of, this is, our mediation room up here, and I did 2 mediations in the last week here where I was a lawyer for somebody and there was another lawyer, and then we had a mediator, a retired judge, and he's an excellent Judge Solomon. I don't know if you know him. Elliot Solomon.
Yes, I do.
He is lovely, and there's a lot of judges that are in this business. Judge Presley, who works with me, does this too, but one of the things he does, the special sauce that he has, I think, is the first thing he does is he meets with everybody in the room, the husband or the 2 spouses, whoever they are, and sits with them and the lawyers, and he tells you about himself, right? And he says, "This is what I did, this is what I do, and this is why I know what I'm talking about." Basically, like, I did this for 25 years. So it builds the credibility, and the person says, "I really should listen to this guy because he knows what he's doing." And then what he does is he breaks the parties apart, and the plaintiff will go first with their lawyer, and they'll sit, and he'll listen, and he just, whatever you want to say, obviously he sort of jokes and says, you don't have to start in kindergarten, but start in your adulthood. I want to know about you and hear, and then he does the same thing for the defendant, whoever that is, and then after that, then he starts meeting with the lawyers and sort of working on sort of negotiating and putting a settlement together, and that's sort of interesting how you talked about that same quality and that same technique, because he has such a high success rate in settling those cases, I think, because the people feel heard.
Right.
And they feel listened. So even though he may talk them into something that at the beginning of the day, they're taking a position, I'm never going to pay that, or I'm never going to accept that reduction in this asset or whatever it is. It really it magically sort of works. And it's not magic. It's almost science, right? And it seems to be that when you said that to me, it really triggered something in me, because the listening, active listening, and listening not just to listen but to understand.
Right.
It seems like that's what you're saying, is that it helps you with the governance.
For sure. And with my colleagues, right? That's also really important. We can't make a decision if I don't bring my team along to vote in a way that is going to turn out to be positive.
Right, because you can have disagreements with people.
Absolutely.
And you will. I mean, we're humans, and we will, but if people at least feel heard and listened to, it seems like it creates fertile ground for compromise and for agreement. Is there a lot of are the people on the council usually aligned in what you guys do? Are there folks is it all Democrats on the?
No. So by state statute, we have minority representation. You can only have, in every size body, there can be a certain amount of from one party. It doesn't matter the party. It could be the Green Party, right? Or any party. So working families. So 6 on the council is the most of one party. So there has to be minority representation, which is a good thing. And so right now there are 3 Republicans. It could have been an unaffiliated person. It could have been, again, and in Hartford they have, and this is a state law, right? So it applies to every board and commission, which can be really challenging because a lot of our boards and commissions are not political, and nor should they be.
Right,
and we have to appoint with political representation. So it hurts us in trying to, but I know the intent was a healthy intent. But anyway, so we have 3 Republicans, and I will say that, I work really well with everybody on the council. There's one person that's been very politically charged. She's run for a lot of things, and she can be a little more political than the others. But like we talked about before about potholes, we all live here. We all pay mortgages or rent. We all we want to be safe. We want our children to go to top schools. We want our investment to go up in value, and we want a good quality of life and all of those things. So, and everybody on the council does care deeply about this community, and I'm grateful for their service.
Wow, that's interesting. As you were saying that, what it reminded me of as a good metaphor, and strike me down if I'm wrong, but it almost seems like you know how people used to be called. You remember probably when you were younger, they were called stockbrokers, right? Now they're called wealth managers, right? And I have lots of friends that do this in town. There's a lot of good ones.
A lot of good ones in West Hartford.
Say hello to Howard Rosenblatt, who's a friend of mine. He's in town. But the point is that there's a lot of folks that do this, but their job is to take your money, and presumably they're experts and they know how to diversify and tell you how much you need to put in to achieve whatever goal you want, and then hopefully they do that properly and that grows. Right. The metaphor I see for the council is you're those wealth managers, except you're managing the people's investment in their home and their families, right? And making sure that their family is going to be nourished, and that's part of the instead of stocks or mutual funds, it's their family, it's their home, it's their livelihood, all of those things that you, with your priorities, can allocate the resources in a way that hopefully will grow all of that. You don't get a statement at the end of the month that says you had 1,000, now you have 1,200. Right. But over time, you say the values have maintained or have grown, right? The schools continually are ranked in a good way. We're able to provide the special education needs to folks that don't. We're able to, perhaps even fund folks in town. And I presume there's a budget for this, for oil assistance and other things that, for people that are less fortunate that can do that. So I just never thought of it that way. But do you think that's an appropriate metaphor?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's a I think so. I also, yeah, I think so. It's very holistic, and we have to. And it is hard. It's all a balance, right? And every cost goes up, and we have 3 sources of income in all municipalities. And West Hartford, everybody's different. Farmington has a lot of corporate. They have a lot of corporation presence, more than we do.
Right.
Bloomfield has. Cigna is a big corporate player. We don't have that. We have our largest taxpayers, actually, Blueback Square and West Farm Mall. Those are the largest
and only part of the mall.
Retail.
Right?
That's only half the mall.
Right.
So
hence the name West Farms.
Exactly. So I know people never know.
I know
that,
one day, like I think I'll admit it. Like I forgot what it was, but I was like out of law school. I bought a house, and then one day it just clicked. I'm like, oh my god, that's what that means.
Why.
And actually, Parton's in New Britain too.
Yeah,
like,
that's
but
right.
yeah, little sliver.
Little. But
so what are the 3 sources?
But anyway, so it's property taxes, and that's real estate and personal property, and motor vehicle, right? So that falls under property taxes. It's state funding.
Oh, so the state doles out some of the money they get.
Yeah, and largely for us, it's education cost sharing, it's ECS grants, and a little bit of road money, and then it's fees, permitting fees and that kind of thing. So, but 90% of our income in West Hartford is from our residents. Well, it's property taxes, so it's
the cars, the vehicles,
it's
and for businesses that pay,
absolutely. And it is Connecticut has a very high tax. Burden. It is our taxes are high as compared to other states, and.
Well, what other states, as you know, they fund it other ways, right?
That's right. Sales
will hire. They do tolls, right? They have
or if like a Florida that has so much tourism, they get so much revenue.
They tax the tourists at 14% a day. And all of that.
They still have property taxes, but it's not the.
And they don't have state income tax. I don't think, right?
That's right.
Right.
They don't. But we don't. We don't get the state support that our larger communities get, like Hartford or Waterbury, New Haven, and so there's not a lot of comparable communities to us. Size-wise, we're about the same size as Fairfield.
65,000, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Greenwich, very different income levels.
Right.
We have a solid, strong median income. But we have significant wealth, but we have significant needs too, poverty. So, we have a lot of lower mod income, much more than that part of town. So, part of state. But it's always, it's always a challenge. Property taxes. So, how do we meet the increasing needs every year? We need to raise teacher salaries or we're going to lose them. We need to raise police officer salaries or we're going to lose them. They should be getting a 2.5%, 3% raises every year to keep up with
the cost.
Their own, and they will go somewhere else if they don't get it from us, right? Our firefighters and paramedics that we just saw go by that have an incredible response. We had, I think, 9 cardiac arrests in town in the last 3 months, and we've saved everybody's life.
What?
So that's
they did.
Yeah. So and it's all response times. So if it's your life or your loved one, they may not be all residents. They may have been in a restaurant or whatever.
But that's our duty to the people that are here.
Exactly. So, and when people say they don't want change and they don't want, so where's it going to come from? We have to cut things. Then we have to cut a road reconstruction. We have to cut funding to the schools.
Right.
We have to cut.
Right. There's all these folks that are like, the government, we want to cut it to the bare bones. And then, of course, they're the ones on the phone calling for,
Right.
By the way, my wife worked at a library for 10, my sister-in-law is a librarian at Tunxus.
Oh, yeah.
And my wife worked as a librarian for 10 years in Glastonbury. Do you agree? My wife says this, or I think I said this, but I sort of took it from my wife, and it was that the library is the best and highest use of government.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, the library is the best thing that the government does.
I say it's the kitchen of the community.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
but it's people don't realize, like, the library is not just going and get books.
Oh no!
You can rent pictures at some libraries. You can rent toys. You can rent. I know that like some of the
daughter-in-law was renting toys.
But I think and you can rent from any library.
That's right,
and return it to any library.
Absolutely.
And I know there was budget cuts with that, but you can go to I think Weston and granted some of these very wealthy towns and rent pictures. So you're like, oh, we're having company over. I'm going to rent pictures for the wall.
It's incredible.
What a great thing for free.
I just went. I had a little time. There's a group, this woman, Elizabeth Hanlon, you can actually, she would love to do a podcast.
Oh, I love that.
She has been working with English as a second language, newer immigrants. Immigrants are all different times of their lives, but, they've been here 5 years, 10 years, 2 months, whatever. She's been working with them for a long time. And one of the things she does with them is a book club. And she gets repeat people doing them. They're it's called Community Connections, I think, and it really gives people that are new to the community that might not be. They may be new to America, new to Connecticut, and it gives them the community connections to really be successful. And I went to their first book club, and it was in the meeting room of the library. And I actually had a music class with my granddaughter there. In that same room.
It's everything there.
So it's very cool.
Now to shift a little bit, so we talked about the relationships that needed for good leadership. Do you think some of those qualities also translate? Obviously, you've been married for 39 years.
Yes.
Tell me about that, like the importance of like how do you have any tips for folks like about like what works for you guys? Like obviously not holding a grudge. I think that's great advice because I always call it a reset button because sometimes especially with 4 kids, like we have 3 kids. You are just sometimes you're just cut to the bone, and you come home and. People always say, oh, it's got to be 50-50. No, because there's sometimes I come home, I'm on trial all day, right? I've got 10% in the bank.
No, you can't.
And you can't. And I say, hey, I need you to give 90% today. And she's like, I only got 50. And so but you have to be able to, like the next morning, wake up and say, you push a button and, right? Reset. I mean, so I think that's great advice. What other kinds of things do you think in terms of those types of relationships, your intimate relationships, your partner, you think that lend itself to a 39-year marriage?
Well, it's supporting each other and nurturing the relationship. So, and I have said to young couples, and I said this to my son, and my daughter-in-law, and I'm so glad they're doing it, is to take time out to make sure you're nurturing and taking care of the roots of the family, your relationship. Because all of that other stuff, the kids and all of the activities and everything else that comes from it can pull you away, and you just don't have time for each other. And so I think it takes effort, it takes intention to make sure that you connect. My husband is a person that needs to talk things through, and I need to be able to listen to him. It just if he's traveling all week and then all weekend long we're with the kids and we don't have the time to connect, and another week goes by and he's busy at the office, it can get out of hand. And so it's really important to make sure that you carve out some time, even if it's a walk, some time to be to connect and not be pulled with all these other, and we are and we were extremely committed parents. We had kids that were active in a lot of things, and we did a lot with them. We went camping when they were little, and then we would travel, and we did a lot with them. And but we always took some time. We would have a steady Saturday night babysitter, and sometimes we would just sit in the parking lot, the driveway. We're like, they're not in bed yet, so we're just going to stay here until, and just talk. And, so I think it's easy to get wrapped up in, the kids, which they need a lot, right? But it's also easy to get wrapped up in yourself and your own and not understand what your spouse or partner is going through. And I traveled with my husband. I feel like that was the smartest thing I could have done. And we were lucky. We both had parents in the area. My in-laws are both deceased now, but when the kids were smaller, and my parents were local, I had a good friend network, and we had the means to pay for a sitter when we needed one, which is we're very lucky, right? But I don't think I would have understood the demands on him if I hadn't traveled and understood the important relationships. I'm going to have this one over the house. I have to go out to dinner that night. And, if I didn't, really see firsthand
that he wasn't out
how it was
gallivanting, right?
how important it was to developing those business relationships, to go to Japan, to go to South Korea. I would have been like, what?
What, you were going to leave me with 4 kids, right?
Yeah. And, post-surgery, right? Or pre-surgery.
No, right. But he
lot.
was building, this hugely successful practice that's obviously going to pay dividends for you and your family. But that's interesting. So I think part of what I'm taking from that is that sitting and listening to each other, just like you said before, listening to constituents or political rivals or whatever it is, it seems to be the theme of what you're telling me in terms of either leadership in the the political arena, local political arena, but also playing your role as a spouse to somebody, right? I mean,
right. Not carrying the anger,
anger, right?
And listening and understanding the frustration that both might feel for each other. And it's interesting now because I'm in a little bit of a different phase in life, and he's not traveling as much now. He's trying to ease out as a managing partner. He'll still be involved in the firm, but it might be a little different dynamic. So, how does that adjust our lives? And, I worry for families that when it's all in with the kids and then the kids leave and you look at each other and like, who is this person, right? So you have to do things you enjoy together. And sometimes there's not as much things that you pick up the things you do enjoy. Like I said, taking a walk. We used to play tennis sometimes at night at 8 o'clock at night. That was the only time we could have ourselves, to ourselves. So, or go for a bike ride.
Oh, interesting.
Or, whatever.
And or even go grab dinner somewhere.
Absolutely.
Or do something like that.
Go
bowling,
movie,
whatever. Yeah. What something a little more light. As we wrap up, so in town, I know you can't play favorites, but where do you like to eat?
Oh gosh, I've been asked this question before. So we have so many.
You're allowed to have preferences, though.
We are so lucky, and it varies.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you this.
I
won't put you. All right, you go everywhere. I'll tell you what I like, and you could just tell me if you like them too.
Well, I will say that the long time. Places that have such a special place in my heart.
I know what you're going to say.
Been here. Well,
Arugula.
Billy Grant and Arugula, right? They were the start.
They were OG.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Billy, like it's my son's favorite place, and it just brings me back to all these wonderful places, all wonderful times in our lives. And Arugula, I've had so many fabulous meals there, right?
I've worked for Chris. I've been a friend of hers forever. Her food is.
It's
I tell people it is one of the best restaurants in the state,
right?
And it's just,
and she
doesn't
flies
miss
under the radar.
She doesn't. No, she's existed here forever, and you go in there and she just doesn't miss.
No, she doesn't.
Her and Mike just don't miss.
And I love the new bar.
Oh, yeah.
Just this Parisian feel. And
she's hilarious, too. I mean, she comes out with a story, and she suffers no fools. And
so her mother and my mother-in-law were very good friends. They were both piano teachers.
Oh.
And so they knew each other, and it was a cool relationship. So when she opened, we were like, okay, we know, and so we're very lucky
arugula
to have. But and then Dorian has added so
I just saw him this
much
morning. He's a good dude. Yeah,
he's amazing. He's added so much quality to what
he's got golden hands too.
He does. And obviously the Max Group with Savoy and Burger and Oyster Bar, they've really committed to West Hartford, and they're solid, and they know what they're doing, and they just. And then
it's really great place to eat. Just to shift gear, something I forgot to ask you about before. Do you get calls from people about the building department to move along their permits?
So
I hear that all the time.
So I used to get calls a lot. We we added staff, we streamlined the process. I have a chart now. I do my state of the town.
Right.
I'm doing it March 18th, and we have consolidated the time so much.
Oh,
So in
good.
the last month or two, things are different. They're just
that's
changed.
good. Because people would be like, we want to get this through. And then, someone told me, they said,
horrible.
if I call over there, they're going to put you at the bottom.
No. If they called me, it didn't get to the bottom.
No, they're working hard there. They're just inundated, right?
But we think we fixed it, and so the backlog is done, and we're really up now. And it was, this chart is, I'm going to send you the chart.
I want to see the chart. No, that's great. No, it's great because we tried to, when we were trying to get our sign approved, it was like we were waiting, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I had a friend, and he's like, I have a friend over there, but I'm afraid if I call, then you're not going to get your sign for 6 months, one of those places. But no, but look, they're trying to do the right thing, and they want the town to have a certain aesthetic, and it's got to look good and everything like that.
Yeah, but you can do it. You can do that and still move things efficiently. And there were glitches. We had a system that didn't work, and we lost a couple people that were seasoned and were tired, and it was hard to find. The municipal workforces are challenged, and that's another reason why it puts pressure on our budgets. You have to pay people what they're worth, otherwise they'll go somewhere else.
And then what about what's going on with? I know there was a lot of issues with people pedestrians getting hit by vehicles. Right. What are we doing on that?
So we adopted Vision Zero. We actually, the council adopted the Vision Zero plan, which took a year to develop with a consultant that it does this around the country. And we are doing speed mitigation throughout the town, whether it's raised crosswalks, pedestrian beacons that are way more highlighted, changing the way traffic lights. Number of our roads are state roads. We actually was awarded a Safe Streets for All grant. That's a federal grant for speeding, for speed cameras. We probably will do red light cameras. I don't know if it will be. We applied for a grant every time. Almost every day I get an email from somebody saying, I saw somebody go through a red light.
Right.
And it's a problem. People, I don't know what happened with the pandemic, but post-pandemic, drivers are more careless, and I'm not sure what happened.
Oh, interesting.
But it's a thing. And in New York Times, Wall Street, it's everywhere.
It's rewired.
And highway driving, we've seen the wrong way crashes.
That's right.
And then the real, what do they call them? Not distracted drivers, but aggressive drivers that are weaving in and out. It's a thing. But in town, we can do a lot, and what we need to do is make sure that our roads are, our speed limits are appropriate for that road. Almost all of our roads are residential roads. People live on them. What we did on North Main Street, the road diet, that kind of model where we do things to slow things down. If it takes you 2 or 3 minutes to get somewhere, but you're safer because of it, and maybe a road user that either a bicyclist or pedestrian is safer, it's well worth it.
I like it. So when I started the podcast, I told you that the name of it is I'll Call My Guy. And so my question for you is, who's your guy? I mean, you probably have a lot of guys, but who's your person?
Well, my husband's my first person to guide me, and does this feel right to you?
Right, sure.
I feel like, does this feel right to you? But I will say my oldest son is also a great resource for me. He's just,
and what is he?
Now he's 35. He works for the UConn Foundation. He lives in town now, but he's the father of my granddaughter, and he's always been an advisor to me. He was in 10th grade.
He's the password child, as my siblings say, because I'm the oldest too. They're like, you're the password child.
Well, he was in 10th grade when I started serving on the council. And I would walk out the door, and he would be in charge of his 3 brothers, and he would make dinner. And, and so it's funny because that role and him kind of overseeing them, they never really got over that a little bit. I mean, there's sometimes a little dynamic with him, but he's a very,
so he's your guy.
A great, yeah. But I have I'm very lucky. I like the council. I have.
Oh, right. You have
guys.
lots of.
And depends what the issue is, right?
Right. That's what I said to Ronnie Newton when I interviewed her, and she said, "Oh, well, where do I start? I call Shari. I can call this person in town or this person, whatever
Ronnie
you need."
has so much.
Ronnie's
solid
Ronnie knows everything.
And,
she's the.
And it's never like just a surface review. She understands the in-depth stories, and we're so lucky.
Oh yeah, no, she's great. We have such a combo, and again, Duke grad. I mean, she's super smart, and she's did insurance and all these things, and she really brings sort of a high level of journalism to a town, and that again, helps nurture the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're very good. Well, listen, thank you so much. I know that your time is precious. I wanted to meet the woman who runs a really, really nice place to work. Certainly, my kids obviously don't go to school; they go to school in Farmington. But I'd be happy if they went here. It's a great place. The town is run well. We feel safe here, and certainly you guys have cultivated a place where businesses feel like coming, and you want to go to eat. Right. And this place is packed on the weekend, sometimes at night. And thank you for the job that you do and for spending time with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.